Hello everyone and welcome to the round glass review for the Nikon Series E 50mm f1.8 Type 2. This lens replaced the Type 1. What was different between the Type 1 and the Type 2? The Type 1 was all black. The Type 2 added a silver ring. The Type 1 arrived in '79. The Type 2 came out in '81. Typical lens uses for this lens would have been as a budget 50mm lens on budget SLRs. At the time that this lens came out, it would have been mounted on the FG20, FG, or even maybe some later EMs. I'm not 100% sure about that. And that would have depended on the specific time that camera was produced and released, as this lens would have been tied to entry-tier SLRs. Now, one key way to tell that this lens was intended as a budget lens is that it has no deep cup around the front element. What that means is that it would, in theory, have a greater propensity to flare and ghost versus an identical lens with a highly recessed front element. But as we're going to see in this video, really, this lens did not flare much at all under normal circumstances. The flare is really minimal and almost imperceptible. It just has an effect on softness and sharpness, rather, in some areas. And when we get to the diagram section of this video, I'm going to explain why that is. For your bottom line up front, this lens is a favorite of many Nikon users, and with good reason. In fact, it was such a good lens that when Nikon released the AI autofocus 50mm f1.8 and then the later AID version of that lens spec, the optical design remained the same from this lens, except that the coating system was improved. Yeah, oh yes, this lens was the standard-bearing 50mm f1.8 lens for Nikon from 1979 until, I believe, 2022. Your focal length and AOV are 50mm and 46.8 degrees on full frame, 76.5mm and 31.6 degrees on APS-C, and, oh hello here, 39mm and 58 degrees on GFX. The aperture range is 1.8 through 22. Element and group count are 6 and 5. Design type is double gauze. Filter size is 52mm. The closest focus point is 0.6 meters, which in the US is 24-inch worm minutes. This is manual focus only. Its native mount was Nikon F. That's the AI Nikon F variant. Dimensions are 62.5mm by 24mm, and it weighs a quite light 135 grams. My first tip is that if you like the latter Nikkor 50mm f1.8 lenses but want that look on a budget, this is the same lens, albeit with different coatings, and it's likely to be cheaper than those. Next up, for GFX shooters, this lens covers GFX very well at infinity. The general performance of this lens on GFX extends beyond the full frame. And what I mean by that is the image character you see in full frame generally continues towards the GFX image area with a slight degradation in kind with what you would see in the full frame corners and image peripheries. So if you want a fast pancake lens that has a focal length that feels like a 40mm lens in full frame terms, well, GFX users, this is a lens worth investigating. In that vein, this lens has some chaotic, blurry areas in some settings when wide open, and it appears to have some slight overcorrection of spherical aberration, which contributes to that. For users who value light roll-off quality, this lens, especially wide open, will deliver in a way that you are likely to be quite happy with. As a lens on smaller than full-frame sensors, this is a great portrait option, if not being a good general use lens as it would be on full-frame and GFX. I did not try this lens on a speed booster, nor did I shoot it natively on APS-C at all, but I feel pretty confident suggesting that either of those formats would be a good option if you want to deliver fairly sharp and flattering portraits. For film users, colors and contrast are good, and your images are not going to require too much work in post to turn them into captivating images. Now lastly, this lens does have a bit of general flare when wide open that will sap a bit of fine detail from some subjects. It doesn't appear as something you can really clearly see on sample photos, other than when your images are wide open. They're a little bit softer in bright light, than they would be in, say, controlled studio light. Now, that said, we've seen worse performance in this regard in other videos in this series, but with this lens specifically, that performance can be mitigated to a point with a good raw workflow using the contrast, highlight, shadow, and sharpness sliders. As a general tip for any camera, don't adjust the sharpness slider to a percentage that is higher than your camera's megapixel count. In fact, for all of the full frame images in this video, I used a Sony a7 IV. The sharpness slider in Photoshop CS6 was adjusted to 35%. For the GFX images in this video, those were shot on a 50S2. That same sharpness slider was adjusted to 50. So that's a good way to adjust your sharpness without it looking too overly sharp and too overly processed for the size of the sensor that you're using with any lens. Let's take a look at two blurry balls shots. First with the lens at infinity focus, and here we see strikingly even illumination of blurry points. This indicates exceptional lens correction, albeit a bit of mechanical vignette does get into the corner balls. At close focus, the points in front of the focus point retain that character. The points behind the focus point show some spherical aberration overcorrection, which is why the blurry lights have brighter perimeters, and something that you may notice throughout this video in shallow depth of field images with backgrounds that have bright specular highlights. The dots test chart shows exceptional sharpness that renders the pixels on my monitor and in detail, and there's also some minor chroma in the image's dots, even towards the center of the image. The corners perform in a generally uniform manner, with some minor chroma and astigmatism mixing with some oblique spherical aberration to create a blur pattern that will often, especially at close focus, translate into jittery backgrounds if there are complex or chaotic lighting conditions, such as light reflecting off water or myriad specular highlights. I'm going to steal some info here from the 1001 Nights link in the video's description. This lens's surface profiles, we're talking specifically about the two surface profiles that face the aperture blades, are relatively shallow by 50mm double gauze lens standards. Now this has two main benefits for the way the lens performs. The first, this lens is smaller and lighter than most, if not all, 50mm lenses at the time that it came out, including Nikon's own slower 50mm f2 lenses. The second is that the shallower curve radii on the surfaces around the aperture specifically reduce chroma and flare compared to other double gauze lenses of the time or comparable double gauze lenses later that have deeper surface profiles around the aperture. So that's your optical engineering lesson for today. In a double gauze system, deeper concave cups around the aperture will, devoid of other corrections in other elements or with coatings, increase the amount of chroma and flare a lens delivers. Breathing is noticeable in both still image shifts as well as motion focus pulls when the lens is at the closest focus point and pulled over a 0.7 meter range. The breathing will be more significant when you pull focus over greater distances than just the 0.7 meter test that I do in these videos. The aperture has 7 blades and is stepped in full stops. The front element is non-rotating, but does move in and out about 5.5 millimeters, which is 11% of the lens's focal length. The focus throw is 135 degrees with a stationary and narrow focusing ring. Focus damping will vary by lens age and use, but is not something that feels highly refined on any of the copies of this lens I've used or tested prior to resale over the years. And if I were to guess, that's around 200 of these. The autofocus effect on audio is not applicable because this is a manual focus lens. That said, many of the copies of this lens I've tested or used have had a faint rubbing sound when they're focused, and it's far worse with fast pulls than slow. So for on-camera audio, if you plan on doing focus pulls, just make sure they're nice and slow and gentle with this lens. Sharpness, wide open, is present but slightly limited by a bit of overall flare on focus points. Sharpness is, to my eyes, the best at f4 and f5.6, with the lens being capable of rendering arm hairs on a subject who is 25 feet away at those apertures. The build quality is good by the standards of consumer tier lenses, and if I'm completely honest, I do find this lens to be built better than the latter Nikkor AF iterations, which had more plastic in the body. I have never seen one of these lenses with a housing crack, but I have seen the latter AI and AID versions with cracks in the housing or aperture rings that have just straight up fallen off due to impact trauma. Contrast with this lens is generally good and highly editable in RAW, especially if you stop down to f2.8 and smaller. On film, contrast is also strong, and that does lead to rich colors. Aperture stars make their first real appearance at f5.6 with in-focus light points and the 7-bladed aperture delivering 14 pointed stars. Stars peak for me at f11 with strong points and clear point definition. Out-of-focus areas are often chaotic and jumbled with backgrounds that have lots of rapid contrast changes or mixed colors. This is more true at wider apertures. Distortion is close to non-existent. My test shows slight barrel distortion, but Nikon's tests of this lens at the time it was released, and we're all going to accept, myself included, that Nikon's engineers back then did a better job at testing this than I will be able to do today. Anyway, Nikon's tests showed that this lens has distortion of less than 0.1% at infinity focus and around 1% for objects at the closest focus point, which almost always is where I test the lenses for this series, and in general that will always amplify the apparent distortion with a lens, including this one. Light loss will be tested here on both full frame and GFX, and wide open this lens is a stunner on both formats. By f2.8, illumination on full frame is uniform, and this lens stays that way through the balance of the apertures. GFX exhibits some light loss through f4, with the quality being suitable to f2.8 for photographers who like a bit of corner darkness in their images. By f8 on GFX still, there is no apparent light loss, and that stays the same through f22. Flare is a minor deal, and I have no images that really show it clearly. There's just a general softness in some of the images that were shot wide open, and frankly, it can be readily edited out if you shoot RAW. So flare with this lens manifests as a general softness wide open. Ghosting only occurred for me one time, and that's pretty great since I never once used this lens with a hood. Balance with cameras is nice, and this lens is tiny and light, and the center of gravity will very much be inside of the camera you are using it on. The Nikon Series E 50mm f1.8 lens is a truly great optic with versatility for users across formats, subjects, and photographic interests. This lens is a strikingly good performer that has earned its reputation as such. There's a quiet sort of nature to this lens that shows up on your camera, does its thing, does it very well, delivers images that, from a technical perspective, likely will not let anyone down, and does so with neither showmanship nor braggadocio. This is the humblest of lenses and will be happiest in use delivering for your photographic aims. To that end, here is perhaps the best thing I can tell you about the Series E 50mm f1.8. It's not a lens that screams favorite, and a lot of people may look at you like you have two heads if you tell them that it is. However, if you care more about your images than you do about your gear and what people think of it, this lens will be one that consistently and quietly says, hey, you never have to tell anyone, but I know I'm your favorite. Hey, and if you enjoyed this video, check out this other one you'll probably really like too.